Sooner fans, Longhorn Nation, welcome to episode 44 of the Bevo Podcast, the only podcast exclusively dedicated to covering the greatest rivalry in college football, the University of Texas and the University of Oklahoma. I'm here with my man Kevin Miller. I'm John Whitson, and we are discussing all things not related to the University of Oklahoma and the University of Texas in this episode because we are talking about the college football playoff semifinal recaps from yesterday. Kevin, were those the two best college football semifinals that we've ever witnessed?
You know, the only one that compares is your game.
That did not happen. That was not a real game. That did not occur.
Well, I can tell you it was real and it was glorious. It was a great game. I know you wish it would have turned out the other way, but man, that was an amazing game to watch. Just as a neutral fan, it was a great game to watch. I know the ending, but
I still have PTSD from that game.
Understandably so. I get that.
I think TCU shocked everybody that has not been watching Big 12 football this year because I really think that everybody expected TCU to just get handled by Michigan.
Yeah,
I think they thought that Michigan was going to manhandle them, push them around, dominate them, get to Duggan, stop the running game. And I'll tell you what, dude, TCU was the tougher team. There's no two ways about it. And
absolutely.
the way they went for it on short yardage, the fourth down, there was no doubt they were going to pick up any sneak they tried. And one stat says it all. Besides the 51-45 score, the other stat I should say is 263 yards rushing against Michigan by TCU without, might I add, Keandre Miller for what, 3/4 of the game almost?
Yeah, at least in the second half he got hurt. I don't know exactly when that was, but they just did whatever they wanted to offensively.
Kevin,
Again,
what Garrett Riley is the offensive coordinator for TCU, which is really the only blight on why I was rooting for TCU. Garrett Riley was the only thing that was making me feel a little queasy about that decision, but I was rooting for TCU. I'm rooting for them to win. I love Duggan's story. I like the whole thing. But in what world does a Garrett Riley-led offense, a protege of the air raid system, run 263 yards against a Jim Harbaugh Big Ten Michigan defense? Are you freaking kidding me?
I know, man. 41 rushing attempts for TCU, 6.4 yards a carry. It's unbelievable, man. It just did not go how, and I didn't see it going this way. I mean, and I didn't pick TCU, I picked Michigan, but I did not think that they would be able to play this way and beat Michigan.
I did not pick this game, so I can't sit there. I have a text message showing where I picked Georgia to win in the other one, not the way it went down. But I did not pick this one. I think I probably would have picked TCU just because that's who I was going for, and I would have tried to be picking it on the side of the upset, but I wouldn't have felt great about it. But it doesn't matter, dude. They dominated that, especially the first half. They dominated. Michigan had a heck of a third quarter to come back, but TCU was right there with them with 20 points.
Yeah, they scored. Michigan scored 24. TCU scored 20. So yeah, they never could stop TCU. And again, go ahead.
Duggan didn't have just a tremendous game.
No, 14-29 passing there. You can see.
But man, he's gritty though, dude.
He is. Yeah.
He's gritty.
Dudes, man. They've got players. We've seen it all year. Right?
Well, Quentin Johnson's the best. He was the best receiver. He might be the best receiver in the country.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Did he win the Biletnikoff? Did I miss something?
I don't think he did. I don't know who did, but I don't think it was him.
Okay, now I got to look this up. Biletnikoff, right? Biletnikoff Award 2022. Let's see how it didn't go to him. Oh, Jalen Hyatt was pretty good.
Okay,
Jalen Hyatt.
Okay, yeah.
Jalen Hyatt. Well, I don't care. Okay, forget Jalen Hyatt. You had a good year, but in the playoff, he was the best receiver on those four teams. It's not even close.
No. Yeah.
And that play in the fourth quarter
Correct.
when Michigan is down 3 and they have got the momentum and they've stopped them and it's 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6,
Yeah.
and they
It's a
send the house.
5 point lead at the time.
How many guys they were? They rushed 7. It seemed
I
like they
think they
sent a
were
lot
7.
of dudes.
Yeah.
And Duggan just drifted back and hit Quentin Johnson on a crossing route, and that dude was gone.
Gone.
I
Shot out
mean,
of a cannon. Listen, before that play happened, I'm sitting there with my wife watching it. And I tell Casey, I'm like, they better not blitz here. They can't blitz here.
no
And
reason to
of course,
blitz.
they bring the house. No, no. All you have to do is drop 7, even drop 8. Give them nowhere to throw. They
You know,
blitz, they don't get there. Easy catch. And just reminded me, it was a Todd Orlando special. Texas fans know exactly what I'm talking about. 2018 against LSU,
you know,
2019 against LSU.
Duggan did not have a great game. All right, we can't sit here. He won't be compared to the quarterbacks that we're going to talk about in the second game. Um, he did not like stand out. But even in that play call, right? He it seemed like every big play he made was avoiding the rush. He avoided the rush just enough to throw a touchdown, just enough to pick up the first down. Like he was just rolling away and just drifting, and then it was a touchdown or a big play. I don't know, man. I was impressed with TCU. Nothing flew. They did have 2 returns for touchdowns. I guess
Yeah,
that could be kind of fluky, but I didn't feel that way. Not when you have 263 rushing yards against a team.
correct. I mean, look at these rushing stats individually, right? Amari DiMercato, 150 yards on 17 carries. What?
Yeah.
And then Kendre Miller, before he got injured, 8 carries for 57 yards. They couldn't stop the run. And again, this is a Michigan team that prides themselves on their toughness and being able to stop the run. They just hadn't seen an offense like this. And I know Ohio State is explosive, right? But it's just a different type of deal with that running game. Ohio State was lacking the running game this year because they've had so many injuries at the position. But yeah, TCU represented well. You see Quentin Johnson there, 6 catches, 163 yards and a touchdown, man. Dude's a baller. Again, former Texas commit, flipped to TCU, and it looks like he made the right decision, man. He's had a great career there.
I got to tell you, TCU is just. I, I remember when we previewed TCU, and I was hard on Sonny Dykes and his record coaching.
Yeah,
I just wasn't impressed with what he had done, and I remember talking about that and thinking to myself that TCU has hired a guy that's, I don't know, maybe a name over any kind of real substance. Clearly, he's outperformed himself in this year, and maybe it speaks to the fact that when you coach at Cal, that's the record you're going to have. Like there's
yeah.
only so much limitation. There's only so much your coaching prowess can do. But with what he's done at TCU, they have beat. I mean, now you add this win to how they beat Texas 17-7, which was just a slugfest.
17-10, yeah.
17-10. And anybody that saw that game knew it was. I mean, that looked like watching a Big Ten game.
Yeah, he was
And then
very
to be able
physical.
to be able to go to what everybody claims is a physical Michigan team and just match them blow for blow. Man, I don't know. TCU is rolling, and I like what Dykes is doing. You got to like what Max Duggan's doing. The question is, are they going to have enough to go up against Georgia? I don't
Yeah, it's
know.
gonna be tough, man. It's gonna be tough. So yeah, I mean, as far as this game goes, I thought Michigan, their decision making in the red zone really
Oh,
hurt them because think
oh,
about this. They got the ball, they were going right down the field. They go right down the field in that 4th down call. I mean, you fought Philly special. I mean, was that necessary?
no, it's not.
And
Well,
then
it
you
should
lose.
be.
No, no. And then the
But
second one, go ahead.
how big? Well, I think what you're about to bring up. How big was the no touchdown call and place the ball at the 1 foot line?
Man, that was huge. First of all, I thought he was in. I think you thought he was in too, right? Because he kind of bobbled it, and by the time he had possession, he appeared to be in the end zone.
The announcers thought he was in. My daughters thought he was in. I didn't even think it was close. I didn't even
No,
think it was close.
and the crazy thing about it is they called it a touchdown and overturned it. I can
Yes.
see if they would have called him down and said, "Oh, well, there's not enough to overturn it," but no, they reversed the touchdown call, put him out the one, and then they hand off to the fullback, and he fumbles the ball instantly.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's a huge turnaround. I mean, after the first quarter, TCU is up 14-0, but goodness, it could have been 14-14, even 21-14 for Michigan.
You
You
know,
know,
Michigan is really kicking themselves because um, they had to feel like this was. I mean, when they had to play Georgia last year, they were really just happy to be there. They were happy to
yeah.
be in the college football playoff.
Mm-hmm.
But this year they're seeing TCU and they're licking their chops and they're like, "Hey,
Yeah.
we know we've beaten Ohio State. We know we can do that. So we just need to get there. And we've played Georgia before. We're not scared of Georgia anymore. We know what they're
Mm-hmm.
like. Blah blah blah. We just Michigan fan, and most importantly, JJ McCarthy's girlfriend is having a really bad day today.
Listen, did we have to show them
Yes,
every segment we saw his family.
they weren't showing his family, dude. They were showing
I
JJ
mean,
McCarthy's
listen,
girlfriend.
they showed her more than they showed Catherine Webb back in the
Was
Sugar Bowl against
Okay, for the
OU.
record, we've talked about Catherine Webb before on this episode, so this is not like we're not venturing into uncharted territory. And Catherine Webb has had some work done, and she looks great. That girl is
AJ McCarron's girlfriend, by the way,
AJ McCarron's girlfriend, wife now.
back in the Sugar Bowl. Yeah, wife. Back in the Sugar Bowl against Oklahoma, right? Is that when that
That
was?
got what's his name in trouble?
Brent Musburger.
Brent Musburger got all in trouble. Yeah, you noticed that they didn't say, what's his who was calling the game? Will
Sean
McDonough,
McDonough.
Sean McDonough, and Blackledge. They didn't say
Yeah.
nothing. They didn't say nothing about her.
No. Lessons learned, right?
But she is just a nice looking, young lady. That's it. Like,
She is, and I get that.
I
And I
mean,
mean,
but
she's not
nothing
Catherine
like
Webb, right? And
she's not
again,
Catherine. Listen, Catherine Webb was Miss Alabama.
yes. So I mean, again, that's
I
why I'm questioning the amount of times they kept showing
now
in
that you've
every
learned
play almost.
for everybody that's got YouTube and they're watching it, Kevin Miller has figured out how to put statistics up on YouTube. I asked him before the broadcast if he would put a picture of Catherine Webb next to JJ McCarthy's girlfriend, and he quickly said no. No, I am not
This
doing
is not
that.
the best
We are
venue
not
for.
comparing
Yeah, this
JJ
is not that
McCarthy's
kind of
girlfriend.
podcast.
But she was featured prominently in that broadcast yesterday. It was insane.
Yes, it was a
But
lot.
it was
It was
Kevin.
not there.
Okay, listen, man. This was a great game. I don't know. Do you have any other takeaways besides this being just a
No,
fun
it was
game?
just a fun game, man. And congratulations to TCU. I did not think they would win this game. I certainly didn't think they'd be able to put up 51 points against that Michigan defense. Also, Michigan had to open things up offensively, which Jim Harbaugh hates to do. He'd rather run it 50 times and throw 10 if they could. I
Woody,
thought JJ
we
McCarthy,
saw him on the goal line. Woody,
man, listen, they had some chances there, and the play calling in the red zone was just weird to me, and that's a big factor as to why they lost the game. Handing it off to the fullback, just give the ball to Donovan Edwards, or just have JJ McCarthy sneak it in. He's an athletic guy.
So
They've
weird.
got good, decent receivers. Ronnie Bell had a good game. He's had a great career there. Roman Wilson was good too. But man, when they got down so much, they're just completely out of their comfort zone. They are not built to come back from 21 points down.
But they did. They were right there. Listen, they did. I did not. Listen, they got down they were down 13 or 14 two different times. It's hard to know because there were missed point afters and stuff, but they were down a number of different times at different points in the game, and they kept coming back. Like, they kept making it interesting. And I actually thought McCarthy played a really good game. Duggan's two interceptions were actually a little more flukier. He actually hit his guys in the hands, and they kind of bounced up. Those interceptions weren't necessarily on Duggan. I think they were on McCarthy, but he was definitely more dynamic than was billed. I think he was a pretty good little player.
He is. He's an athlete too. You saw when he got loose on those runs. I mean,
but come on, dude. We can agree Harbaugh's a weirdo, though, right? Like, he just does weird. He just does weird stuff throughout the game. We talk about Gundy sometimes being self-destructive. Sometimes I think Harbaugh has a little Mike Gundy in him.
And the thing about this game too, right? It seemed like every time Michigan got close, and it seemed like they were going to take over the game, TCU made a play.
Big play. Yes, just like that Quentin Johnson play that we were talking about.
Yeah, I mean, look at this, right? It's 41-38.
Yeah.
And you got them in third down. And at this point, you can tell, like, TCU can't stop Michigan at this point. So they get the ball back. They're going to take the lead.
Yep.
And, man, 76 yards.
Yep. And no one was
It was
around him
great.
too, man. He was
No,
all right.
he was shot of a cannon. Once he got to the corner, I mean, you weren't catching him, man. And
All right.
6'4", 210 with 4.4 speed. Can't wait to see him in the NFL and not have to play him.
Dude, forget the NFL. I can't wait to see him next Monday night. He will be facing the Georgia Bulldogs, which so I did pick Georgia. A buddy, I got the text receipt. If anybody wants me to put it up on the screen, he said, "Who do you got in this game?" I said, "Georgia wins." First of all, I said, "Can they both lose?" That's what I would have liked to happen. I don't really like either one of these teams. I don't like Ryan.
So let me ask you this. I get why you don't like Ohio State. Is Georgia strictly because of the Rose Bowl a few years ago, or is it something deeper?
Kirby Smart is a weird guy, and I don't like his accent. It's very breathy. He's like a very breathy accent, and he talks with his drawl, and he does all this stuff. And I hate it. It makes me uncomfortable. Yeah. I think he's a creep. Okay, and so that makes me uncomfortable. And anytime a team is like really good for a long period of time, I start trying to root for other teams.
So is Georgia at that point for you as being too good for a long time already?
Yeah, like they've had their fun. Like against Alabama, I was rooting for Georgia. Last year I wanted Georgia to beat Alabama.
Fair enough.
But I'm already over that. And so like, couldn't they both lose? I expected Georgia to just go ahead and win the ball game. And then when Ohio State's up 21-7, I'm thinking, oh, well, they got Stetson Bennett. They're not really, the most dynamic in the world. Ohio State's going to go ahead and win this game. And then your boy, Stetson Bennett, who you give no credit to, who you never consider to be a good quarterback, who you said at best is a mediocre college quarterback.
Correct. I have said that.
All he did was ball out for 23 of 34, 398 yards against Ohio State, 3 touchdowns against only 1 interception. You could argue he got outplayed by C.J. Stroud, who went for the same completion percentage on the exact same number of completions, 348 yards, 50 yards less, and 4 touchdowns. This was a quarterback duel, and it was fantastic.
It was great to watch, man.
So are you going to get does Bennett get any credit now? Any credit now?
Yes, he was amazing. Yes. Listen, man, I go by what I see, right? Just like we talked about on our last show, me picking Texas to go 8-4, just based on what I saw. And he was incredible, man. He was incredible down the stretch. Once they got down, I just did not think, despite them having great players, they don't have big name receivers, right? They don't have, Quentin Johnston for Georgia. There's nobody like that. So I didn't think, now their running game was there, and it was there the whole game. But when you're down that much, I'm like, even with these backs, they don't have the receiving talent. Between them and Stetson Bennett, I did not think they were able to come back. So, yeah, Stetson Bennett absolutely proved me wrong yesterday.
So they come back. They take the lead. 42-41. They leave plenty of time on the clock with 2 timeouts and plus everybody getting hurt for Georgia on every single play. It was crazy. Ohio State had plenty of time. Did you agree with the way Ryan Day handled the last 3 plays leading up to the field goal?
No, I thought it was horrible. And this is not in hindsight. I thought this as it was happening.
What was he doing?
Yes. I mean, are you just content with kicking an almost 50-yard field goal when you're down? I can see if it's tied. But when you're down, what are you thinking? No. And he had been so aggressive the entire game. And that's what kept them in the game. That's why they were winning the game, because they were so aggressive.
Okay, listen, I am fine. I am totally fine with not slinging the ball around at that point, right? You've gotten to a reasonable field goal position, but you've got to run C.J. Stroud. Like he's got to get. It's got to either be draw. It's got to be draw plays or quarterback boots, or get him out, let him make some. But he's got to pick up 5 or 10 more yards. You put that kicker in a really, really tough position. And boy, did he shank a kick like I haven't seen from a high-level kicker in a really long time. That was a really bad kick.
It was tough to watch, man. I felt bad for the kid. I mean, he didn't even hit the net.
My daughters thought it got blocked.
Casey thought the same thing. She thought the same thing.
And I'm like, no, guys, he just missed it. And in their limited football knowledge, I don't think they fathomed that somebody could miss a kick that bad.
Yeah.
Oh, it was – that kid is going to relive that kick over in his mind for the rest of his life. And
again, though, he never should have been put in that position to make a kick like that. Here's, if you're watching on YouTube, here's the play.
Now scroll up a little bit. Can you Okay.
Okay, yeah, I got you.
Just give us a little scroll up there if you can. If we're looking at this now, Kevin has figured out on YouTube how he can show us everything.
And
And
I'm gonna take this off real quick.
yeah, he runs for 27 yards. 27 yards to get to the Georgia 31, which Georgia 31 plus 7 is 38, plus 10 is a 48-yard field goal. First and 10, 28 seconds. I think at that point they had 2 timeouts, right?
Yes, they did. Mm-hmm.
And then Georgia calls the timeout.
Yeah,
That was the
they
interesting
know.
thing. So they still had 2 timeouts.
Mm-hmm. They knew because if Ohio State scored, they wanted to have a little bit of chance to try to get down the field and get a field goal themselves.
And then they go they run the ball, which maybe you run the ball there. I don't know. I'm not saying to guess that. But the 2 incomplete passes, I don't know why CJ Stroud is not running the ball.
Correct.
Put the ball in his hands. He's the most dynamic player on your team. He was the best player on the field last night.
He was. He was
the best player on the field last night.
He had the best game of his career, given the circumstances against that defense.
We have talked about CJ Stroud. We've talked about him on this podcast. He's almost a victim of being in the Big Ten and not having get to play anybody. Like, none of their games were against anybody any good. He had a really good game against Penn State, and then that kind of got lost in the shuffle. And then he didn't have a great game against Michigan. And so you kind of forgot how good he was. This dude balled out against the best defense in the league, in the country.
Correct. Oh, absolutely. And you look at the talent, I think he gets underrated too because of the guys he's been throwing to. I mean,
Hart Harrison
Jr. And then Emeka he's a 5-star receiver. Julian Fleming, also a 5-star receiver. And the guys he had last year who went to the NFL, right? Garrett Wilson is one of the best receivers in the country coming out of high school. And so was Chris Olave. So he gets underrated because of the talent, but no, man, he was incredible. He was elusive in the pocket and just made some incredibly accurate throws down the field.
I think you've got to get the ball. I think he needed to be running. Quarterback draw or some sort of design quarterback run.
Yeah, you had to get closer.
You had the time, and you had the timeouts. You had the timeouts. You had 2 timeouts. So it was a weird set of downs. But whatever. The game itself was just fantastic. Georgia goes up against TCU. Does TCU have any chance, Kevin?
Listen, if you're there, you got a chance. You absolutely have a chance. Look, they gave up 41 to Ohio State. Now, listen, Duggan is not CJ Stroud, but he offers something different in the ability to run the ball, even for tough yardage. If you need, if it's 3rd and 5, right? He can drop back if no one's open. You trust him to be able to get 6 yards, even though he's, not as dynamic, not Kyler Murray running the ball, but he can pick up those yards. That's why they have a chance.
Okay, we probably haven't heard this, but is Kendre Miller?
Kendre Miller.
I'm sorry.
I haven't heard anything yet. It's probably too soon. We probably won't know till the middle of the week. We might not even know till game time.
If Kendre Miller if Kendre Miller is back, if he is back, are those 2 backs better than anything Ohio State threw out at Georgia?
Yes,
I think so too. So you have better running backs, not as good a quarterback, and a better wide receiver.
Yes. Now listen, they have better talented players at receiver. Ohio State does, but no one's as productive as Quentin Johnston. I mean, from the whole roster of receivers for Ohio State,
sure,
is better than TCU's whole. But
yes, but
there's no Quentin Johnston for Ohio State.
But one player can really transform the way a defense has to prepare and the way the defense has to play the offense, right? If you have to account for Quentin Johnston on every play, it allows for those other players to make plays. It's not nearly as balanced.
Played well against Michigan, right? Their other receiver. They've got Savion Williams, who's a good player too.
I mean, I think we both think Georgia wins, right? But yes, there's a path that TCU can win the game.
Yes.
What would the comparison be? Is there a comparison to a TCU beating Georgia in the college football playoff era? I don't think so.
I don't think so. I don't think we've had any massive upsets. I mean, it was an upset when Ohio State beat Alabama that year with Zeke Elliott when they ended up winning the championship. I think they were 7.5 point underdogs, but I think the early spread is already 13.5 that Georgia's favored. So I don't know if we've even had a spread this large in the playoff.
To me, you know what? To me, and I know it's probably cliche that I go here. It's real similar to the Oklahoma Florida State matchup in 2000.
Yeah.
Because Oklahoma was a 13.5, 14-point underdog. Florida State was coming off a national championship. They had a dominant offense and supposedly a dominant defense, and nobody gave Oklahoma a shot. The game was being played in Florida. Now, this is played in the Rose Bowl, so I don't know that that's going to – it's not like this is in the Peach Bowl. I guess last night's was in the Peach.
The SoFi Stadium, actually.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's a sweet stadium.
It is.
So, I don't know, man. I think TCU has a chance. Georgia probably wins, but there's a path. TCU.
Yeah, listen, you get to this game, there's a chance.
TCU thinks they can win the game.
They should.
TCU think
though what our fans are going to think if the first team to win a college football playoff championship is TCU. I think I could accept if it was OU. I think OU fans reluctantly would accept that Texas
intellectually, yeah. I think we could accept that.
But TCU.
Well, first of all, I think it's better than Baylor. When Baylor had those good teams, it would have made me sick if Baylor would have got in. Yeah. When TCU got left out, I actually thought they had one of the best teams that year.
I thought, they absolutely deserved to be in that year.
They deserved to be in it. I don't know what they would have done. I don't even remember what year. Was that the very first year? Was that the year Ohio State?
Yeah.
So you look at, I think they were as good as that Ohio State team was. You're looking back on it, everybody was like, well, they had Ezekiel. Well, yeah, but Ezekiel Elliott, they had a good, he got good because he was in the playoff.
Yeah, we didn't know. No one knew who he was from a national standpoint.
Yeah, so don't give me that. So no, I'm not as surprised that it's TCU. I'll tell you what I'm more surprised is that it's TCU without Gary Patterson. I'm more surprised it's TCU without Gary Patterson. Both sides, Texas and Oklahoma, always thought he was a good coach and all, this and defensive this and blah, blah, blah. Sonny Dykes has these guys playing at a whole different level.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because look, offensively, yes, they've got Garrett Riley calling plays, and they look every bit the air raid, the high-powered offense. But I'll reiterate, 268 yards rushing against a Big Ten team is not air raid. I don't care who's calling it. That's not air raid. And number two, they can play defense. You saw it against Texas, and we've seen it throughout. They can absolutely play defense, and they played very good deep. Even though Michigan put 45 on them, look at the Ohio State and Georgia both were in the 40s, and those are two of the best defensive teams in the. So
especially Georgia, yeah.
They can play. TCU can play. This is what Oklahoma wishes they had with Baker and Kyler, is a defense that could perform at this level. No, nobody's going to confuse them with Georgia, but they are good enough. They are good enough, and they're opportunistic, and they're aggressive, and they're playing with confidence, and they are good enough.
And they showed the ability to win games, right? They won that game because of their defense against Texas.
You know what? First of all, they should be undefeated. Did you notice the first thing Blackledge said when they got into the red zone is they would be undefeated and they would have been the Big 12 championship if they'd have just run Duggan.
Yeah.
And then what Duggan did, he just went and scored. Mm-hmm. Like right on cue for Blackledge, he just went and scored. Yeah. I mean, they should have beat Kansas State. They should have beat Kansas State.
Absolutely, yeah.
But
hey, lucky for them, they still got in and they're able to prove that they deserve to be there.
We've talked about this before. Neither one of us are guys that like root for the Big 12, but there is something kind of nice that the Big 12 showed up a little bit.
I can live with that. Here's what I want to say though. If TCU wins this game and they become the national championship, I mean, he'd be the first coach since Larry Coker in 2001 with Miami to win a national championship in his first season. This would be way more impressive than that, because that Miami team is probably the most talented college football team we have ever seen. The 01 Miami Hurricanes.
100%.
This is TCU. And again, they have good players, right? But
How long was Les Miles at LSU until he won? Was he there for 3 or 4 years?
I think so. Yeah, I think his first year there was 05, and they won it in 07.
Ogeron was there 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right.
His first season. Yeah. No one has won a national championship in their first season since Larry Coker at Miami. And Miami had Ken Dorsey, Willis McGahee, Frank Gore, Clinton Portis, Andre Johnson, Kellen Winslow, Jeremy Shockey.
Well, we haven't even mentioned the defense. Yeah. It's like, God.
Yeah. So we're talking about a few Hall of Famers on that team. And this is TCU. So for year one, to win a national championship would be as impressive as anything we've ever seen.
If TCU wins the national championship, it probably is the most impressive. But I think the argument is going to be made that TCU has taken advantage of a down year across the board because Alabama was down, Oklahoma was down, Texas was down in their own conference. I think that's the argument they're going to make. They're going to get the benefit of the doubt because they're in the playoff and they had to beat good teams. And Georgia's not down. Georgia's undefeated. If you beat Georgia, they're a good team. But I think you're going to hear some of that talk. I don't know if it's warranted or not. To your point, you look at that Miami team. They don't have superstars. Like we look back at that Ohio State team, we're like, oh, man, they had Ezekiel Elliott. It's validated now because of what he's done in the pros. It's going to be fascinating to see how they're judged. I don't know. I think it's a great story. I'm pulling for TCU. I hope to see it happen. I don't know. Last thoughts.
Man, I just hope it's as good of a game as what we saw yesterday. Personally, I really don't care who wins. If we get another game like that for the Natty, I mean, it'd be a great way to end what's been a pretty fun college football season. Dude,
a season that has gone by too quickly. I cannot believe that we are a week away from college football being over. We talked about it in the last podcast. Basketball is a nice filler. Oklahoma and Texas had a great game yesterday, but it's not the same. It is not the same as college football. I want more college football. If anybody out there is arguing against the playoff after yesterday, they are out of their damn minds. They're out of their damn minds.
I absolutely agree.
That was as good of football as you can imagine. And could you imagine a whole extra layer of games before that? I don't even want to think about it. Oh my God. I love it.
You step out on the field and you just don't know what's going to happen, right? Most people thought Michigan was going to destroy TCU. They lost. Most people thought that Georgia was going to beat down Ohio State, and it didn't happen. They won, but they didn't beat them down. It took them missing a last-second field goal. So you just never know what's going to happen when those two teams step out on the field. So I'm looking forward to next Monday.
If you're new to the Boomer Bevo podcast and you want some more excellent Oklahoma, Texas coverage like you've seen on this episode, please refer to the 43 other episodes where we talk exclusive Oklahoma, Texas. But we had to talk about these semifinal games. They were so good. They were so fun. Kevin and I love the sport of college football. And yesterday was the prime example of why we love college football. We just need OU and Texas to get there. Get into this 12-team playoff here in the next couple of years, and let's make some noise happen. I can't even imagine. Can you imagine for a second, and then we'll go. Can you imagine for a second if you were able to get into a 12-team playoff and Oklahoma and Texas meet in the playoff?
It would be unreal. Look how close we were to getting Michigan and Ohio State for the Natty.
I can't even. Be
unbelievable.
Our heads would explode. Oklahoma and Texas fans' head would explode if we were playing in a playoff in Jerry's world. Like we both won our playoff quarterfinal game, and the semifinal game was in Dallas. Can you even imagine? It would be the greatest Oklahoma-Texas game. The buildup would be the greatest Oklahoma-Texas game ever.
I mean, when we played each other in the Big 12 championship and after the 2018 season, I mean, that was incredible. Such a unique.
Wait a minute. Here I am even saying, let's get to the semifinal. What if we made it to the national championship? It could happen in a 12-team playoff.
It could absolutely happen. Yeah.
I don't know what I would do,
man. Yeah.
We beat you so bad that you would never want to do it again, but it would be so fun.
49-0. Hold on now.
Yeah.
I get to carry that until next year, man.
Hopefully our starting quarterback doesn't get hurt and our offensive coordinator grows a brain. Kevin, this was awesome. We'll you know what? If the game is as good as this, we will absolutely have a final episode. And for all those wondering, yes, we're going to kind of keep this going through basketball season. Not as many. We're not going to go every week. Definitely not twice a week. But when big games come up and big things happen, we're going to keep us going. Spring football will be here.
News, man. There'll be news.
Oh, spring football will be here before we know it. Oklahoma and Texas football isn't going anywhere, and we're here for it for you year round. Boomer Bevo Podcast. Like, subscribe, watch us on YouTube, wherever you get it. Big shout out to KREF 94.7 1400 in Norman, Oklahoma for getting us on their Podomatic page. And for all you new listeners who are listening there. Kevin, have a great New Year's. Boomer.
You too, man. Hook 'em.